Talking about warning signs for the Republican Party, and I will just say, uh-oh, for them. That is the phrase of the day, uh-oh. Democrats lead in the generic congressional ballot, and you can see their lead is expanding. It's becoming bigger.
You know, guys, I know we spend a lot of time talking about the doom and gloom of it all, and rightfully so, right? I mean, we've got an authoritarian takeover, the likes of which we have never seen before. We have a faltering economy because Donald Trump is an insane person who doesn't understand tariffs. But today, I actually want to bring you a glimmer of hope. It's not a huge glimmer of hope, but I think it's something that we can be cautiously optimistic about as we move into the future. And to just take a step back for a moment, you know, up until now, every time when you asked people whether or not they would still vote for Donald Trump, knowing what you know now versus somebody like Kamala Harris, ever since the election, people were kind of like, yeah, I don't really like Donald Trump, but I would still vote for him. And since for the first time since the election, I just saw a poll where Kamala Harris finally has the majority. Now, that is a glimmer of hope in and of itself, but we are also starting to see Donald Trump hemorrhaging support from all over the place. He is coming to the government. He is trying to burn down our country from the inside out. He is the most corrupt president that this country has ever seen, and the American people are starting to wake up to that fact. And not only is Donald Trump leading support, but we are now starting to see that the Democratic Party is starting to widen their lead on the generic ballot. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
You know, we're talking about warning signs for the Republican Party, and I will just say, uh-oh, for them. That is the phrase of the day, uh-oh. Democrats lead in the generic congressional ballot, and you can see their lead is expanding. It's becoming bigger. Look at this in spring. CNBC, it was 2. Now it's 5. How about Ipsos? It was 1 for the Democrats. Now it's 4. How about the Wall Street Journal? It was 1, and now it is 3. So now the average lead here is 4, which is up from just about a point. That's about a 3-point move on average in the Democrats' direction. And of course, Kate Paul, when this is coming amidst the fights over redistricting, I think there are going to be a lot of people wondering, wait a minute, are Republicans wanting to change the lines because they are losing, which they absolutely are on the generic congressional ballot. At this point, Democrats are winning, Republicans are losing, and maybe they're trying to change the lines in order to give themselves a little bit more wiggle room, given what we're seeing, a clear Democratic momentum on the generic congressional ballot.
So I want to revisit the whole redistricting fight that's going down in Texas right now a little later. But what we are seeing here is a positive development for the Democrats. I think it's something that we need to be cautiously optimistic about. It's something that we need to make sure where we don't get complacent about before the 2026 midterms. But as you can see, the Democrats are starting to widen their lead on the generic congressional ballot. And honestly, I really don't know what took so long. Donald Trump has only been in office for 6 months now, but what have they done? They have passed that big despicable bill that is going to cut millions of people off of their Medicaid. It's going to cut millions of people off of their food assistance. It's going to be the largest transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. I really just don't understand why we hadn't started to see this shift a little sooner. Now, to be fair, the Democrats, they've kind of been all over the place. They've been kind of rudderless. They have been struggling to gain their footing, and that probably has something to do with it. But now that people are starting to feel the effects of what Donald Trump is doing to this country, the American people are starting to step back from their support of Donald Trump. So we definitely need to build on this momentum so we can clean house in the 2026 midterms. It's so damn important. Now, you might think that, oh, this is just a generic congressional ballot. It's just people saying that they would vote, but not only are we widening our lead on the generic ballot, but we are also doing pretty well in special elections.
Yeah, okay, so this is the polling, right? You're looking at party ID. You're looking at the generic congressional ballot. How about the special elections? Look at this. In the median 2025 special election so far, Democrats in these different districts, get this, they're doing about 13 points better, the median Democrat, than Kamala Harris did in those same districts last year. That is a huge, huge movement. And last year what we saw was, in fact, when you compare the 2024 special election results back to the Joe Biden baseline of 2020, Republicans were actually doing better than they did in 2020 in those. So again, this is clear movement towards the Democrats, and we're seeing it on 3 different metrics, 2 polling and 1 in actual election results.
So I think this is super, super important. We're not just asking people whether or not they might go out and vote for a Democrat on the generic congressional ballot. It's not just polling. we are seeing it in actual elections. I mean, we saw what happened in Wisconsin. You had Elon Musk throw what, $30 million at that Supreme Court race, and he got absolutely obliterated by 10 points or more. That is what we are seeing in other special elections around the country as well. I think if you go take a look at how Democrats are overperforming, this is also another glimmer of hope that we can move forward with, something that we need to build momentum off of. Now, I want to go ahead and revisit the redistricting fight that's going down in Texas right now. As most of you guys probably know, Donald Trump called up Greg Abbott and said, find me 5 more seats so I can win in the midterms, basically. And Greg Abbott said, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I'll do what you say, sir. And so now we've got fights going on around the country. We've seen Gavin Newsom step up. We've seen J.B. Pritzker step up. We've seen Kathy Hochul put her boxing gloves on rhetorically. And so things are starting to heat up across the country about this whole redistricting fight. And when you put it in the context of Republicans starting to lose their advantage for the midterms, things start to make a little bit more sense. They are trying to cheat because they know that they are going to lose in the midterms if they don't do something about it. And instead of catering to the voters, they want to cheat by redrawing lines in the middle of the decade, which is just outside of the norm. These people are terrible human beings, and they will cheat if they are able to. And so a follow-up conversation to these polling numbers, here is what one Democratic strategist had to say about what is going on with this whole redistricting fight.
How much of a coincidence is it we're seeing that and these Republican efforts at redistricting at the same time?
No coincidence at all, John. What the Republicans are doing in terms of the naked, corrupt power grab of trying to redistrict Texas and then going into other states to try to do the same to steal Democratic seats is because they're seeing this polling, is because they're seeing the town halls where voters are pissed off about what Trump and Republicans have been doing, which is going back on their word, betraying the American people, taking away health care from millions of Americans, taking away food from the mouths of hungry children, focused on helping billionaires instead of working class and middle class voters. And the numbers are showing it. And so instead of trying to defend their big, horrendous bill that they just passed, instead of trying to compete with Democrats on the battlefield of ideas and policies that actually do help working class and middle class voters, which is what Democrats are talking about, they have to resort to lying, cheating, and stealing. And frankly, John, I kind of predict that that could actually backfire because voters are going to see that and they're going to say, so now you're going to try to take away my vote and my voice? I don't think so.
No, she's absolutely right about this. This could backfire for the Republicans. And it kind of feels like Republicans have just forgotten or they just don't care that we live in a democracy. I mean, they got voted into power. They passed the big despicable bill that is going to be devastating all across the country. And instead of revising their positions or updating their ideas so they can cater to the voters who are supposed to vote them back in, they decided that they're going to cheat instead. They've decided that they don't want the voters to hold them accountable for all of their bullshit. That's why we have Donald Trump calling up Greg Abbott, and you've got J.D. Vance going into Indiana to try to get these people to redistrict in the middle of the decade. They are trying to rig the election in advance because they are so unpopular. They are so terrified of losing power. Donald Trump is terrified that if Democrats clean up in the midterms, that he's going to be under investigation the rest of his term. He is going to basically be stopped dead in the water for all of his agenda items. That is what they are terrified about. And so we need to keep on putting on the pressure. We need to keep providing an alternative vision for America so we do well in the midterms because that's all we got. We can redistrict. California can redistrict. You know, we can play this redistricting fight, but we need to win voters with our ideas at the ballot box. Now, you know, so just to recap, we are seeing our lead widen on the generic ballot. We are seeing us overperform in special elections. And so the other argument that you are going to hear from Republicans is, well, Democrats are super unpopular right now. They're like the most unpopular that they have ever been. And they're not necessarily wrong about that, which is what Lee Carter addresses here.
I mean, we're still not talking about a massive lead. So I'm not looking at this and saying this is a runaway lead for the Democrats. I also look at the same poll, that one of the polls that just came out on CNBC, and Democrats have a all-time low net favorability. They're minus 32. That's a record low number. What I'm seeing right now is that both sides are wildly unpopular. Donald Trump's approval rating not high, Democrats' approval rating very low. And what most Americans are saying is that the political elite are fighting against each other and not fighting for me. The issues I care about the most are cost of living, not gerrymandering maps. And we don't want to see politicians fighting against each other over map lines and have Democrats flee the state looking like they're abandoning the people, not fighting for the people. I think this looks bad for everybody. When people are saying, I'm concerned about my cost of living, fight for that. Don't fight over maps. I think this is a big mistake for both sides. And when I look at this and I look at the poll numbers, I'm actually not encouraged for either side. 78% of Americans say that elites and the political elites are playing by a different set of rules than the rest of us, and they feel like no one's fighting for them. And that's a real big problem for both parties.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to play that clip is because I wanted to address the couple arguments that she made here. She's trying to make it sound like, oh, both parties are bad, both parties are unpopular, trying to say that, oh, people don't want you to do this redistricting fight. It's both parties who are going to be wounded by this. The Democrats in Texas, they're fleeing the state. They look like a bunch of weaklings. Democrats didn't bring this fight on, for one. Donald Trump called up Greg Abbott and said, hey, I want you to redistrict in the middle of the decade because we feel like we're going to lose in the midterms. It wasn't Democrats who started this fight. It is the Democrats that will hopefully end this fight. But we are not going to play with both hands tied behind our back when the Republicans are not abiding by any of the rules and norms that we normally play by in our politics. Now, the other thing she said there was that, you know, both parties are unpopular, which is true. It is also true to say that the Democratic Party is at historic approval ratings. But we also have to consider the fact that while Republicans are basically an authoritarian cult of personality that doesn't turn on Donald Trump, and so he's got a very high approval rating within the Republican Party, Democrats, on the other hand, we are more than willing to call out our party. So it might be true to say that the Democratic Party right now is super unpopular. They certainly are, but that's only because not only do Republicans dislike the Democratic Party, but a whole bunch of Democrats like the Democratic Party right now. That doesn't mean that if we showed up for an election right now, that the Democrat wouldn't be voted for. And we are seeing that on the generic congressional ballot, and we are seeing it in these special elections. So I just don't think the arguments she's making here hold water. It wasn't Democrats who started this fight. It was the Republicans who decided they wanted to cheat to try to redistrict in the middle of the decade. And even though both parties are unpopular, it is starting to look like the Democratic Party is going to take the lead, at least in the polls, at least in the special elections moving forward. So we need to build on that momentum. And to just give you, I thought this clip was kind of fun because, as I had mentioned before, J.D. Vance traveled to Indiana to try to talk to the leadership there to try to get them to redistrict in the middle of the decade as well. And he was met with the most relentless boos that I have heard in quite some time.
Guess who's here right now? JD is here, speaking with Governor Braun right now.
I mean, that is absolutely brutal. The people of Indiana are saying, hey, JD, why don't you get the fuck out? Why are you coming into my state trying to cheat? Why are you trying to rig the 2026 midterms? That is what these voters are telling JD Vance. I absolutely love this energy. And like I said, Democrats can no longer abide by the rules that the Republicans are not playing by. It is an unfair playing field. If you've got the Democrats sitting on the sidelines, they can scream and say, oh, look what they're doing. They're breaking the rules. Why are they doing that? We can't do that anymore. We have got to take the fight to them at their own game. We don't need to start these fights, but we certainly should end them. We've got the better policy ideas. We have more popular support for those policy ideas. And it's about time we start putting forward a better vision for the future than what Donald Trump and the Republicans are offering. Like I said, we are seeing an authoritarian takeover, the likes of which we have never seen before. We have Donald Trump using the military to deploy to our beautiful cities based on wild conspiracies that crime is out of control. It's just un-American at this point. The Republicans have turned into an authoritarian cult of personality. They are the fascist movement that exists in the United States of America. And so I'm really happy to see that Democrats are starting to outperform in these special elections. I'm happy to see that the American people are starting to wake up and starting to favor Democrats in these generic ballots. And I just hope we can build on this momentum. I hope we can put forward a vision for the future that the American people can actually buy into. And most of all, I hope this redistricting battle, I hope it blows up spectacularly in the Republicans' face. These people, every single one of them, need to be voted out of office. Not only are they employing fascistic tactics in the United States, but these motherfuckers do not know how to govern. They are not looking out for the better interests of you and me. They are not looking out for the better interest of your mom or your dad or your grandpa. They are looking out for them and their billionaire buddies. That's why they're taking healthcare away from millions, food assistance away from millions, so they can give giant tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. And the American people are finally starting to stand up and say, hey, we don't like that shit. So I'll leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We've got to build something here on the left that pushes back against this MAGA media machine that just launders all of this authoritarian nonsense for the Republican Party day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, do remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free. If you guys want to go above and beyond that, we have opened up a Substack at politiscape.substack.com. Over on that platform, I actually own the data. So if anything were ever to happen to this YouTube channel, at least I could get in contact with you guys that way. Or if you don't feel like jumping off to a new platform, we have opened up memberships right here on YouTube, and you can subscribe for as little as $3 a month. And as I will continue to say, guys, fighting back against the MAGA media machine, it has got to be a team effort. So I will see you guys on the next one.